Picture this. You walk into a room and before you even say a word, people turn to look at you. Not because you're the loudest, not because you're the most confident, but because something about you commands attention. You don't beg for it. You don't chase it. You own it. That's power. Not the kind that shouts or forces its way forward. The kind that moves quietly, strategically, like a chess master who's already seen the end of the game. Every one of us has been in situations where someone outsmarted us. Maybe it was in a meeting, maybe in a relationship. You walked away thinking, what just happened? How did they twist that around? They didn't have to raise their voice or prove a point. They simply understood what you didn't. How to control the game beneath the surface. See, most people play checkers. They react. Someone makes a move, they respond. But the ones who dominate, they play chess. They think 3 moves ahead. They know when to speak, when to wait, and when to make you think. The next move was your idea. The truth is, outsmarting people isn't about deception or manipulation. It's about awareness. It's about learning to understand the human mind, yours and everyone else's. When you understand what drives people, what triggers them, what makes them fold or fight back, you hold the invisible strings of every interaction you'll ever have. And here's the secret no one tells you. Dominance isn't about aggression. It's about control. Control over your emotions, your reactions, your energy. When you master that, you don't have to overpower anyone. You simply outlast them. Because while they're busy reacting, you're busy watching. While they're getting emotional, you're getting data. And when the time comes, you make one precise move that changes the entire game. In this world, you either learn how to read people or you get rid. You either guide the conversation or you get guided. You either understand the play or you become part of someone else's strategy. So today, I'm going to teach you how to outsmart anyone. Not through force, not through manipulation, but through psychological mastery. 5 rules that will change the way you walk into every room, every conversation, every challenge. Because when you understand these rules, you stop chasing control and start becoming the person everyone else can't quite figure out. The question is, are you ready to stop reacting and start owning the game? Most people want to know how to read others. They want the secret to persuasion, influence, control. But here's the thing, before you can ever learn to read anyone else, you have to learn to read yourself. Because if your emotions control you, if your reactions define you, then you're not leading, you're being led. You can't win a game when you don't even understand your own moves. Think about it. How many times have you been in a situation where someone pushed your buttons and you reacted before you even realized what was happening? You snapped back. You defended yourself. You got emotional. And afterward, you thought, I should have stayed calm. I should have handled that better. That's not because you lacked intelligence. It's because you lacked control. Emotional control is the first and ultimate form of dominance. The person who can stay calm under pressure holds the power because everyone else eventually breaks. When you lose control, you give away information. Your tone shifts, your face changes, your posture weakens. You're revealing everything about your internal state. And once people can read you, they can manipulate you. That's why mastering your own mind isn't just about self-discipline. It's about self-defense. You have to guard your emotions like a fortress. Not to suppress them, but to command them. Power doesn't come from having no emotion. It comes from having emotion and not letting it steer the wheel. Control begins with awareness. You need to know what sets you off, what drains your confidence, what causes that instant rush of heat in your chest when someone challenges you. Start noticing it. Observe it without judgment. The moment you become the observer of your emotions instead of the victim of them, you've already taken back control. Because when you can see the trigger coming, you can choose your response instead of defaulting to reaction. Here's a truth most people never accept. Emotional control is more intimidating than aggression. When someone comes at you, trying to provoke you, and you stay still, unmoved, they lose power instantly. They expect you to fight back. They expect you to justify yourself. They want you emotional, because emotion equals predictability. But silence, calmness, that unnerves people. When you stop reacting, you become unpredictable. And unpredictable people are powerful. I've been in situations where staying calm wasn't just a skill, it was survival. I've seen what happens when people panic under pressure, when their fear or ego blinds them to logic. And I've seen what happens when someone breathes, observes, and waits. The calm person always wins, because in chaos they can see clearly. In noise they can listen deeply. When others rush, they calculate. And while everyone else is trying to win the argument, they're already winning the outcome. Control your breathing, control your voice, control your presence. These are the tools of someone who dominates a room without saying a word. When you walk in calm, collected, and confident, you shift the energy. People mirror what they see. If you're tense, they'll get defensive. If you're calm, they'll subconsciously relax. Emotional leadership starts with how you carry yourself. Every movement, every glance, every tone of your voice communicates something about your internal state. So ask yourself, what are you broadcasting? To master your own mind, you have to confront your ego. Ego is the enemy of control. It's the part of you that demands to be right, that seeks validation, that needs to prove something. The moment your ego gets involved, logic disappears. You can't think strategically. When your pride is driving, dominant people know when to let others feel like they've won. They don't need the last word. They don't need to be recognized, because they understand the goal isn't to win the moment, it's to win the game. This is where emotional intelligence becomes a weapon. You have to train your brain to pause before reacting. Count 2 seconds before you respond to anything that triggers you. Those 2 seconds create space for strategy, space for power. Because power lives in patience. The impulsive lose ground. The patient gain it. Now, this doesn't mean you suppress what you feel. It means you channel it. You can use emotion as fuel, fear to sharpen awareness, anger to deepen focus, pain to build resilience. Every emotion can serve you if you know how to harness it. But to do that, you have to practice awareness daily. Catch yourself in small moments when you're irritated, anxious, restless. Ask, what's really happening here? Why am I reacting this way? The more you do this, the more automatic it becomes. You start to spot emotional patterns like a detective tracing clues, and eventually nothing catches you off guard. The goal is to become what I call internally bulletproof. That means no one's words can pierce you, no situation can shake you, and no insult can define you. You listen, you assess, you respond, but you never lose yourself. People will try to throw you off balance. Some will test your composure just to see how far they can push. Let them. Because the moment you refuse to engage emotionally, you've already outsmarted them. You've shown them that their power over you doesn't exist. Here's what most don't understand. Control doesn't feel powerful at first. It feels like restraint. It feels like silence when you want to scream, composure when you want to react. But over time, you realize restraint is strength. Every time you choose patience over reaction, you're building an internal armor. Every time you hold your ground without raising your voice, you're training your mind to lead instead of follow. And here's the truth. If you can't control your emotions, someone else will. The world is full of people who know exactly which buttons to press. They know how to provoke, how to charm, how to distract. If you don't know your own triggers, they'll find them for you. But when you know yourself, when you understand your emotional blueprint, no one can manipulate you. You become unreadable, untouchable, and unstoppable. So before you ever try to outsmart another person, learn to outsmart your own mind. Learn to stay still when you want to react. Learn to breathe when you want to break. Learn to let silence do the work. Because true dominance doesn't start with mastering others. It starts with mastering yourself. And when you do that, when your emotions obey you, when your energy serves you, you stop being at the mercy of others. You become the calm in every storm, the eye that sees everything clearly. That's not arrogance. That's power. the kind that doesn't need to prove itself because it already knows it's in control. Every person you meet is constantly communicating with you, even when they're not speaking. The problem is, most people don't know how to listen. They're too focused on what they want to say next, too distracted by their own thoughts, too wrapped up in how they're being perceived. But the ones who truly dominate, the ones who seem to always know what's really going on, are the observers. They see everything others miss. They read the unspoken language of human behavior, and that language never lies. The power of observation is the ability to see what isn't being said. People reveal themselves in micro-expressions, body posture, eye movements, tone shifts, and hesitation. They reveal who they are in how they walk into a room, where their eyes go first, how long they maintain contact. Every movement, every gesture, every silence tells a story. But to read it, you need to quiet your own mind. Observation isn't about staring harder. It's about noticing without judgment. When you enter a room, don't rush to speak. Pause. Watch. Scan the environment like you're gathering intelligence. Who's leading the conversation? Who's trying too hard to be noticed? Who's withdrawn but paying attention? Within seconds, you'll start to see social hierarchies form. People naturally gravitate towards strength and confidence, and they subconsciously distance themselves from insecurity. By reading those dynamics, you understand where influence flows. That's how you learn who really holds power. And it's not always the one speaking the loudest. When you observe, you gain an advantage because people expose themselves through inconsistencies. Someone's words might sound confident, but their shoulders tighten when challenged. Their tone rises half a pitch when they lie. They touch their face when uncomfortable. None of these signs are absolute by themselves, but together they create patterns. Observation is pattern recognition. It's noticing when something doesn't fit the rhythm. The human mind craves consistency, and when someone breaks it, they're revealing something: fear, deception, insecurity, or desire. Most people think communication is about talking. In truth, the most powerful communicators listen more than they speak. Listening is not waiting for your turn. It's decoding. You listen for the pauses, for the hesitation before a word, for the shift in breathing when a topic changes. You watch how someone's body responds when they're under pressure. Do they lean forward, withdraw, cross their arms? These signals tell you more than any words ever could. There's a psychological weapon that few understand: silence. Silence is not empty. It's full. When you learn to use it, people reveal themselves in it. Ask a question, then say nothing. Most people can't handle silence. They rush to fill it. And in that rush, they expose the truth. They overshare. They justify. They show you where their insecurity lives. A calm observer uses silence as a mirror, letting others project themselves onto it. In high-pressure environments, interviews, negotiations, confrontations, the one who listens holds control. They're gathering intelligence while the other person is giving it away. Observation gives you time. It lets you predict before you act. When you know what someone wants, what they fear, what motivates them, you can lead them without force. Influence becomes effortless when you understand what drives people. Start practicing this every day. When you talk to someone, pay attention to their energy. Does it expand or retract when you enter the space? Do their pupils dilate slightly when they're excited? Does their smile reach their eyes or stop at their mouth? Notice these things because they are small windows into truth. People can train their words, but their bodies always tell on them. But reading people isn't just about spotting lies, it's about understanding humanity. When you see patterns, you start to develop empathy. You understand that behavior always comes from a place of need, fear, love, pride, insecurity. Once you see the why behind someone's actions, you no longer react emotionally. You start responding strategically. If someone's being aggressive, you don't match their tone. You recognize it's a mask for insecurity. If someone's being quiet, you don't assume weakness. You see calculation or hesitation. Observation turns assumptions into understanding. To become an effective observer, you have to slow down. We live in a world that moves too fast. Scrolling, talking, reacting. Observation requires patience. It's the ability to stay still long enough to let people reveal themselves. You can't notice the details if you're always rushing to make an impression. When you slow down, your awareness expands. You begin to pick up energy, emotion, and subtle cues that were invisible before. And here's the secret: people love to be seen. When they feel that you're truly paying attention, not judging, not interrupting, just seeing them, they open up. That's how trust is built. That's how influence begins. Because trust isn't created by words. It's created by presence. When you observe someone deeply, they feel understood. And once they feel understood, they become receptive to your direction. You also have to learn to observe yourself in the process. Notice how you behave around different people. Who makes you tense? Who makes you open? Who triggers you to speak faster or lower your tone? Those reactions reveal where your power shifts. Self-observation strengthens external observation. The more you understand your patterns, the clearer you see everyone else's. There's also a tactical layer to this. Observation is not passive, it's active intelligence. You use what you see to navigate strategically when you're in a negotiation. Watch what makes the other person pause. When they lean back, when they avoid eye contact, when they suddenly change subjects, those are indicators of discomfort or resistance. That's where the leverage hides. When you know what matters most to them, you can position your message to meet it. But be careful. Observation is power, not manipulation. The goal is not to use what you see to exploit, but to understand and lead. The most powerful people don't use insight to control others. They use it to move situations forward effectively. Real dominance is calm, ethical, and confident. It's about knowing the landscape before you move through it. In the end, reading people like a map means you're never walking blind. You see their emotions, intentions, and vulnerabilities, not to judge, but to navigate. You can anticipate tension before it escalates, sense opportunity before it appears, and understand connection before it's spoken. You become the person who always seems one step ahead, not because you're faster, but because you're aware. And that's the essence of power through observation. It's not about having control over others. It's about knowing the terrain so well that nothing surprises you. The one who sees the most wins, because while everyone else is talking, reacting, and trying to prove themselves, you're quietly collecting information. And when the time comes to act, you already know exactly where to move and why. That's not luck. That's mastery. In every interaction, there is a battle most people never notice. A battle for the frame. The frame is the invisible set of rules that defines how a conversation, a relationship, or a negotiation unfolds. Whoever controls it controls the outcome. The frame is not about what's being said, but about what everything means. It's the lens through which both sides see reality. Most people never question the frame they've been pulled into. They just play along. But the ones who truly dominate, the quiet leaders, the psychological strategists, they know how to create, hold, and shift the frame at will. When you control the frame, you control the narrative. You decide what matters and what doesn't, what's relevant and what's noise. People who lack frame control are constantly reacting. Someone insults them, they defend. Someone challenges them, they explain. Someone doubts them, they justify. But the person with frame control never chases validation. They don't explain themselves unless they choose to. They define the terms of engagement. When they walk into a conversation, they bring their own energy, their own tempo, their own structure, and everyone else adjusts to them. Think of the frame as psychological territory. If you let someone pull you into their frame, you're now playing on their field, by their rules. That's why reactive people lose. They're too busy answering questions instead of asking them. They're dancing to someone else's rhythm. But when you learn to hold your frame, you stop defending your position and start defining it. You don't get dragged into chaos because you set the tone before chaos can begin. Let's take a simple example. You're in a meeting and someone challenges your idea. I don't think that will work. Most people immediately respond by explaining or defending, but that's playing into the challenger's frame. The frame that says they get to decide whether your idea holds value. A person with frame control shifts it immediately. They might pause, look the person in the eye, and calmly say, "Interesting. What part do you feel isn't aligned?" That one sentence reverses the flow. Now the other person is explaining, and you're back in control. You haven't fought for dominance, you simply changed the frame from attack to exploration. This is the art of psychological redirection. You don't overpower energy, you redirect it. It's judo, not boxing. When people come at you with aggression, sarcasm, or doubt, you don't fight it head on, you absorb it, neutralize it, and then reshape it into your frame. The one who defines meaning controls emotion, and emotion controls behavior. If you can change what something means, you can change how people respond to it. Every argument, every negotiation, every relationship lives inside a frame. In a disagreement, for example, one person's frame might be, "I'm right, you're wrong." But a skilled mind never plays inside that structure. They'll reframe it to, "This isn't about being right, it's about finding what works." Suddenly the power struggle evaporates, the emotional charge dissipates because you've changed the battlefield. Confidence is what protects your frame. Weak confidence leaks control. When you believe in your position, when you carry quiet certainty, you don't need to convince anyone. People sense stability, and they naturally adjust to it. The mind gravitates towards certainty because it craves structure. That's why calm people can dominate loud rooms. Their composure becomes the anchor everyone unconsciously orbits around. Tone and pace are tools of frame control. Speak slowly, deliberately, with pauses that force others to adjust to your timing. When you rush, you signal insecurity. When you slow down, you project authority. Control of tempo is control of energy, and energy dictates who leads. The person who makes others wait, even for a second, silently communicates, "I set the rhythm here." But controlling the frame doesn't mean you dominate others through ego. It's not arrogance, it's awareness. You can shift frames to create understanding, to lower tension, to build cooperation. For example, when emotions escalate, you can reframe by changing context. We're both trying to get to the same goal here, right? That one shift moves the energy from confrontation to collaboration. You've just changed the frame from me versus you to us together. There's also a deeper layer to this. Internal frame control. Before you can lead others, you must hold your own mental frame no matter what's happening around you. You'll face criticism, rejection, or manipulation. People will try to shake your confidence, make you doubt yourself, pull you into emotional chaos. If your internal frame collapses, you'll lose composure and control. But if you stay grounded, if you define reality for yourself, no one can destabilize you. Your mindset becomes the strongest frame in the room, and everyone unconsciously aligns with it. That's why you must know who you are and what you stand for. When you know your values, you're not easily swayed. When you know your mission, distractions lose their pull. When you know your truth, no one can rewrite your story. Internal certainty creates external authority. It's not about being stubborn. It's about being rooted. You can bend without breaking, adjust without losing yourself. Framing also plays a role in perception. How people perceive you is largely determined by the frame you set around yourself. If you enter a room believing you have nothing to prove, you project calm dominance. But if you enter needing approval, you hand over power before you even speak. People treat you according to the frame you project. So project confidence through energy, not words. The strongest frame is quiet certainty. It doesn't need to announce itself. You can practice frame control daily. The next time someone tries to provoke you, don't bite. Let them have their outburst. And stay still. The silence will force them to question their own frame. If someone tries to pressure you, slow down. If someone tries to define you, redefine yourself in that moment. Every time you refuse to play by their script, you remind them who's directing the scene. Frame control is also about creating perspective. When you're in conflict, step back mentally. Look at the big picture. Ask yourself, what's really being fought for here? Ego or outcome? The ability to zoom out and reset the frame is the difference between emotional reaction and strategic action. You can't influence what you're emotionally entangled with. Detachment gives you power. The truth is, whoever controls the frame doesn't need to win arguments. They win direction. They don't need to dominate people. They lead them. Because in the end, control isn't about being right. It's about defining reality. And reality in any interaction belongs to the person